Well, I didn't want to do a DreamWorks villain ranking for a few reasons. Number 1, because it would force me to watch Spirit Untamed. And number 2, because it would force me to watch Spirit Untamed.
Oh, that's real nice.
Also, I already did the top 10 DreamWorks villains video way back when. And even though I gave the entire catalog of villains the ranking treatment for Disney and Pixar, something about DreamWorks' full catalog just did not seem enticing to revisit. I mean, can you blame me? Some of these movies suck real ass. But I figured you guys still wanted this. So as a gag, I listed it as the $20,000 reward for last February's fundraiser for the American Heart Association. We didn't hit 20,000 last year, so I sincerely doubted it would happen this year. Oh my god. I really didn't think you guys would actually do it, but lo and behold, I guess I gotta rank this shit now. On average, DreamWorks villains are fine. There are some truly incredible ones, there are some incredibly awful ones, and then there's the villains that just function and don't really go above and beyond outside of that. It's gonna take quite a bit before we get to the villains I really love. But it'll be well worth the wait, since the cream of the crop DreamWorks villains really are something special. Before we get to move on with the list though, a couple of rules. There are no rules. With the Disney and Pixar villain rankings, I tried to narrow the movies down to just one villain per film, with a couple of rare exceptions, like Monsters Inc. getting both Randall and Waternoose on the list. Here, I don't give a hecking shit. Whatever villains I feel like including will be on here. Some movies might get 2 villains, some might get 3. Some of them might be combined into the same spot, some might be ranked in a wildly different position than the other villain from the same movie. Also, we're only doing villains from the theatrical animated films, meaning I am not going to touch the live action How to Train Your Dragon or Gabby's Dollhouse the movie. What the shit is that about? A couple movies like Orion and the Dark or The Croods don't really have villains, so they're not going to be represented on here. And finally, before any of you get any bright ideas, no, Megamind vs. the Doom Syndicate is not a real DreamWorks movie. It's a TV movie that wasn't made by the main studio, and neither the Doom Syndicate nor Machiavellian will be on this list. We all know where they would rank if they counted though. 13th place. No, 14th. No, I think I have to bump them down to 19th place, actually. Yeah. Okay, 5th place, final answer. Anyway, without further ado, there are a nice even 50 slots for DreamWorks villains to file into. Who will come out on top, and who will be executed for their crimes against cinema? I don't know, probably this character. The one you're gonna see after the disappointment in the game of life. Well, if it isn't my good friend Turbo, back from the dead. Another miracle, no doubt. I kinda thought I was being too harsh on this movie all those years ago, but rewatching it, absolutely not, LMAO. This is genuinely an atrocious movie in every possible way. And one of the biggest reasons why is its pathetic excuse for a twist villain, Guy Gagné. That's not how it's pronounced. I'm not rewatching clips to check what it actually is, though. It's actually not even close between him and the second worst twist villain. It's not even close between him and Lightyear Zurg or Aunt Sarah. I think he is straight up the worst villain in any animated movie, period. All this dork does is mock a snail and tell him he's gonna beat him in the big race. That's it. Bro is beefing with a snail. Are you serious? Why? The snail doesn't even talk to humans. This dude is just one-sidedly declaring that he's gonna crush the dreams of this random tiny snail. What are we doing here? Even in the big race, he doesn't do anything particularly evil or nefarious to beat the snail. All the moments he has where he almost crushes it or whatever feel like accidents. At least until the end where he tries to grab the snail and misses. Ooh, so scary. As I said before, he acts like a big asshole publicly only after he's revealed to the snail and no one else that he's evil. Yeah, okay man, that makes sense. There's also the fact that this guy is Turbo's hero, the racer he looked up to for years who inspired him to race himself. How do you think Turbo feels about the fact that his icon is dissing him and trying to crush his dreams? Oh, he doesn't really seem to care. He doesn't indicate at all that he's upset by this fact. Yeah, I guess I wouldn't be either. That makes sense. This movie is f***ing awful. Like, if you're nostalgic for it, you're wrong. I cannot stress this enough. Guy Gagné lost a race to a snail. Do you think any of these other villains are capable of losing a race to a snail? I sincerely doubt it. This guy isn't intimidating, he isn't funny, the twist with him is horribly written, he doesn't accomplish a single villainous thing. Genuinely, I don't know how you could have him anywhere other than last place. God, what a fucking travesty of a character. Bad movie. The taco scene was really funny though.
Peter, what are you doing? Cracking? What the fuck?
Out of all the newer DreamWorks movies I haven't yet talked about on this channel, I don't think a single one disappointed me quite like Ruby Gillman Teenage Kraken. For a concept with a lot of potential, it's genuinely insane how this manages to be one of the most cliche animated films in existence. And this is especially apparent thanks in large part to its painfully behind the times twist villain. Okay, so the movie establishes that mermaids are the enemies of all Kraken and tried to destroy Kraken kind many years ago. But our heroine, Ruby Gillman, ends up befriending the new popular girl at school, Chelsea. And said new girl is a mermaid! Can you believe that? Together, the two of them are gonna prove that the conflict between their parents and ancestors doesn't define them, and that all the prejudices the Krakens have against mermaids are wrong. A Kraken and a mermaid can be friends. Oh, whoops, actually Chelsea was the evil mermaid queen who tried to seize the Kraken throne years ago, and now she's finally got the trident she wanted by manipulating and or grooming Ruby. She's also the only mermaid in the movie, so I guess when Ruby's mom and grandma told her not to trust mermaids, they were completely right. The moral of the story is, you should always listen to your racist grandma. Chelsea also has the worst design I've ever seen for a DreamWorks villain when she's in her evil mermaid form. Like, God, that is atrocious looking. She only gets 10 minutes to be evil towards the end, and when she's evil, she basically has nothing in common with the version of her we've been watching on screen for the past hour. Like, at least Bellwether still felt like the same person even after her demeanor shifted. Pre-twist and post-twist Chelsea have basically nothing in common. This isn't even mentioning how this is possibly the most predictable twist in DreamWorks' entire catalog. Like, I can't believe they played a pathetic twist like this entirely straight in big 2023. If this movie had come out 20 years ago, I could cut it a little bit of slack. But like, come on. There's basically nothing to like about this villain. The only reason I have her higher than last place is because at least she turned into a kaiju at the end, instead of losing a race to a fucking snail.
Shut up, Rex. Hey! Rex.
I had to watch Spirit Untamed for this. Spirit Untamed, the baby spin-off movie of the original excellent 2D animated masterwork that was made exclusively for little girls with terrible looking 3D animation. Look, I thought I was at peace with DreamWorks and their ridiculously inconsistent output, but this is where I draw the line. It is embarrassing that this is one of their feature films. It sucks so much ass. And as you can probably tell from the fact that I'm currently talking about it, so does its villain. Hendrix is just some dopey asshole who wants to get rich by kidnapping a bunch of horsies. That's it. He has no depth and no intimidation factor. There's practically nothing to enjoy about him as a villain. The only thing I found remotely interesting about him was the fact that he's voiced by Walton Goggins, known for a bunch of roles, including Cecil in Invincible. I legit could never tell because he's so good in that and so atrocious here. At the end, he's all like, "Ooh, come and get me," and then Spirit just rams into him and knocks him off the boat, and he immediately gets eaten by a shark who then explodes. The great thing is, not a single person has ever seen Spirit Untamed, so it's impossible to fact check me on that. Never watch this movie. There is nothing for you in it. Even if you're a little girl, watch House 1977 instead. That has girls in it. You'll love it. It won't give you nightmares.
Bet you didn't expect him to be the bad guy.
I am the first person in half a decade to acknowledge the existence of the DreamWorks movie Abominable. It's fine, but the villain situation is absolutely atrocious. The movie sets up this evil rich guy who's hunting the Yeti, and he has an assistant who looks like Merida because red curly hair. I'm sorry, having red curly hair is trademarked by Disney. You guys are gonna have to pay a hefty fee. Well, as the movie goes on, the evil rich guy realizes, damn, nature's cool actually. I shouldn't be hunting this Yeti. That's whatever, I'm kinda neutral about that progression. But if he's not evil, what are we gonna do for a villain? The red curly hair assistant lady is actually the true twist villain who does all the things the evil old guy was already doing and could have just continued to do. This may genuinely be the most pointless twist villain in the history of cinema. She's revealed to be evil around halfway through, but since she's still keeping up her facade, she doesn't really get to do anything villainous until the last 10 minutes. So we basically have all the same problems as your Hanses or your Bellwethers. She even fakes being British for some reason. Like, she's American and she pretends to have a British accent and be this caring zoologist. What's the point? What's the point of any aspect of this character? She so doesn't need to exist, and she doesn't do anything remotely memorable or intimidating before or after she's revealed to be the twist villain. This twist actively means nothing to me, which means I would have to make some pretty ludicrous stretches to remotely justify having her any higher on the list. Just give me a break already, DreamWorks.
I'm a chef's too.
You know, I ran the numbers, and I don't think there's a single more disappointing film in the DreamWorks catalog than Kung Fu Panda 4. Shrek the Third comes close, but ultimately, it's just kind of a bad comedy that didn't derail the characters or narrative arc of the franchise. Kung Fu Panda 4 is an absolute insult to everything that came before it, and pretty much all of its problems can be perfectly exemplified by its weak-ass, piece of shit, horrible villain, the Chameleon. On paper, she has so much going for her. A neat design, a crazy cool set of powers, a pretty good and committed vocal performance from Viola Davis. She literally brings every previous villain to their knees, stealing their powers and kicking Poe's ass by turning into this crazy chimera beast. There is so much going for her as a villain. You'd think, right? But you know the truth. The Chameleon is a complete joke, in spite of all this ginormous potential she had. Her first scene in the movie, the moment where we get to establish how deadly and dangerous she is, gets this across by having her transform into an elephant and push a guy down the stairs. Oh, that's so scary. That bit of goofy slapstick Poe did in the first movie. That's now the way we're gonna establish our new intimidating villain. Her motivation for stealing the kung fu from all these past villains is because no one would teach her kung fu because she was too small. Just ignore the fact that Mantis and Viper are revered kung fu masters, despite being smaller than her. You can't even say it was just a Furious 5 thing to train small kung fu masters. I mean, there's a Master Chicken! There are little kung fu guys all over the place! Your backstory doesn't make any sense, you dumb bitch! She's a lousy enough villain on her own, but when you have an entire back catalog of two excellent and one good villain to compare her to, villains that the movie feels the need to show her overpowering in order to make her seem like a more intimidating threat than she actually is, that just makes her entire existence extra embarrassing. She depreciates the impact of every villain that came before her in this series. Yet she can't even be an effective and scary antagonist in her own right. The worst of both worlds. Even when she has a decent fight scene at the end, she's taken out in such a lame way. Just so embarrassing. It really didn't have to be this way. If the people who made this movie knew what they were doing and actually cared about the Kung Fu Panda franchise, she could have been great. Oh well, I guess.
It was Prince Charming. He was packing heat.
Oh yeah, great idea, Shrek the Third. Let's make the embarrassing, glimmerous fop of a sidekick villain from the previous movie the main villain in this one. Except we forgot to make him not embarrassing, so his grand villainous plan is to stage a giant lame-ass musical and kill Shrek on stage. You know what? I'm just gonna say it. I'm gonna say it. Are you f***ing ready? Here goes. At least Machiavellian actually had the singing chops to pull off a big evil concert. At least his big evil concert was a means to mind control the entire city. When you're getting upstaged by the villain of the embarrassing Megamind TV show everyone hates, you know it's time to pack it up. It's kind of incredible how much I cannot stand Prince Charming in Shrek the Third. He was a perfectly fine, dumbass pretty boy working under his mommy's orders in Shrek 2. But he is so damn boring as the main villain in the next movie. I've said it before, but a way smarter way to use him would have been to have an entirely new, power-hungry big bad show up and manipulate him into thinking he's owed the kingdom. Only for him to eventually realize he's tired of being puppeteered by others and that he doesn't actually deserve to be king. I don't know. Call me crazy, but I just feel like that's a way more interesting story to tell with a guy whose evil witch mother groomed him from birth to essentially be a proxy ruler for her. Of course, that would require putting the same amount of effort into the story as the first two Shrek movies, and let's not ask too much of Shrek the Third now. Making a sequel that actually respects the richness and care that went into the previous films is hard, you guys. What else is there to say? I guess it was funny when he was having that back and forth with Pinocchio, except all the comedy in that scene came from Pinocchio, so me, I guess.
You can start by wiping that fucking dumbass smile off your rosy fucking cheeks.
You know, it's quite impressive to make a movie with an unfunny Steve Martin performance. But boy did Home pull it off. Captain Smek sucks. He's just this annoying coward who stole a rock with a bunch of babies on it, and now this alien armada is after him, but he blames Bazinga for it. And guys, do you really care? Can we just skip this one? He sucks, he's boring, he's barely villainous, and Home is a movie with 0 fans, so it's not like anyone will bemoan the fact that I didn't devote a ton of time to discussing the intricacies of Captain Smek. Next!
Sherman, I've got to get you out of here before you touch yourself.
Mr. Peabody and Sherman is such a fun and underrated movie, but yeah, the villain kind of sucks. You've seen her before. It's the mean old social worker lady who wants to take the kid character away from his loving family. The most entertaining thing about this iteration of this played out archetype is the fact that her name is Miss Grunion. That's kind of funny, I don't know. Otherwise, for a movie with all sorts of crazy time travel shenanigans, she's just a very standard and played out villain who never shines at any point. Why is she beefing with a dog anyway? Why is she so adamant that a genius talking dog is unfit to raise a human boy just because he's a dog? That's kind of racist. Unfortunately, I have to dock even more points from Miss Grunion for racism. Quite frankly, I think Agamemnon can do better.
The Fusa! The Fusa are attacking!
Yeah, I guess the Fusa can count for this list. The Fusa suck. Mindless predators who only show up in the movie for like 5 minutes, with a decently funny speech pattern of going, Fusa hungry, Fusa eat, but not much going on outside of that. Even as a kid who loved Madagascar, I didn't care about the Fusa. The coyotes from Barnyard left more of an impression on me. Now that's embarrassing.
Okay, let me get this straight. You're gonna go fight a dragon.
The Red Death is marginally more intimidating than the Fusa. Okay, he's a decent bit more intimidating. Like, 10% more. He suits the story pretty well. It's interesting to sort of see the concept of the Alpha Dragon in action before that gets fully established in the sequels. But like, come on, he's not a character. Even by the standards of this series, where the dragons who don't talk still have a lot of personality, this is kind of just a big monster for them to fight. He certainly works for what the movie is going for. He makes for a good final boss. But yeah, I'm not gonna rank him any higher, because I don't really feel anything when I think about him.
Monkey!
The spiny Mandrilla from The Croods A New Age is kind of just the Red Death again. There's a pack of animals who take food from humans, but it turns out it's because they have to feed a giant evil animal. But I'll rank the Mandrilla higher because I honestly like its design better and because monkey. The Croods A New Age is actually really good and funny. You guys should seriously check it out.
Who is that a reference to? Steve Buscemi? Kids don't know who that is.
I can't believe you guys made me rewatch The Boss Baby for this. This is elder abuse. I'm 28 years old and I still need to talk about The Boss Baby. Francis E. Francis has a pretty good motivation, honestly. Like, considering how little of an investment I have in the protagonists of this movie, I was like, hell yeah, get your revenge on Babycore. Own these fuckers, they wronged you so bad. Steve Buscemi also brings a little bit of life to this character, in the same way he brings a little bit of life to the god-awful Adam Sandler movies he's in. But the villain honestly barely shows up in this movie, since I guess we needed more time for terrible, unfunny baby shenanigans. He also really fucks up when he has them on the edge of a plank and he lets them jump back onto the plank and knock him off. What kind of evil CEO / former boss baby are you, idiot? Could be worse, like I said. He's one of the only semi-bright spots of the movie, but he barely even registers in my brain as a character that exists.
It's just one ant.
Would you step on Woody Allen, ant? Like and subscribe for yes, dislike and unsubscribe for yes. Every time I have to rewatch scenes from Ants, it's truly one of the most bewildering experiences of my adult life. I can't even imagine how bizarre and traumatizing this experience must be for a little kid. And leave it to this batshit nutty film to give us an absolutely boring as shit villain. General Mandibug, or whatever his name is so lame. He has a really nefarious plan to weed out the weak members of Ant Society and have them dig a tunnel of their own demise, flooding them all and just leaving the strongest ants as the remaining survivors. Bro is literally just creating the Viltrumite Empire, but in ant form. This is obviously really dark and sinister, which is why it amazes me how little of a shit I give about this character. He is just stern general. Yeah, he's a crazed, evil, raving warmonger, but he basically has no personality to back that up. Since no one has ever done this before, I'm gonna be comparing this movie to A Bug's Life. It's crazy how much more life Hopper has. Not just in the chilling performance from disgraced pedophile Kevin Spacey, but the immensely threatening monologues he gives and the bouts of humor that give him far more personality than this jagoff. I suppose he functions enough in the story with a solid enough evil plan to rank above many of these other jokers. But again, let's not give him too much credit now. I genuinely don't remember his actual name, and I don't feel like looking it up.
Dance off, bro. Me and you.
I have a real soft spot for Makunga, the evil Alec Baldwin lion from Madagascar escaped to Africa. Objectively speaking, he's kind of an awful villain. The entire conceit with him never goes farther than, what if Scar was embarrassing and voiced by Alec Baldwin? But he honestly fits really well as a villain in a franchise that never takes itself too seriously. He's just really funny to me. Like, I can't even tell you if that's ironic enjoyment or what. I honestly don't know if anything he says is legitimately funny, but something about the smarmy, douchebag, lame-ass pompadour lion makes every word out of his mouth funny to me. The segment is such a mess, but I hope you can tell by this low ranking that I didn't let my bias influence where I put Makunga in the ranking. He sucks turbo ass, but he benefits from being in a movie that doesn't call for a serious villain. With that said, yeah, obviously other Madagascar villains do it better, and we'll get to them soon enough.
Hey boss, big butts.
Look, I put up with a lot when trying to justify my ever-increasing ironic enjoyment for Shark Tale, but that does not mean Don Lino is a remotely effective villain. I'll always love him for giving me, "Are you kidding me? Are you out of your minds?" But man, he really sucks. For being a mob boss, he gets disrespected left and right by Sykes, Oscar, a bunch of shrimp. He just lets the shrimp go after the shrimp makes a threatening gesture towards him. Why doesn't he order them all whacked? What is this, a movie for children or something? Robert De Niro's vocal performance isn't the worst, but it certainly isn't the best. And the cherry on top of the incredibly non-threatening sundae that is this character is when Oscar easily traps him in a whale wash mechanism, then convinces him not to be evil because he loves his son. It was that easy. Yeah. We're cool. Weak-ass mob boss with no sauce and a super lame redemption. At the very least, this probably isn't even in the bottom 5 most embarrassing movies Robert De Niro has been in.
Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall.
Some people will try and say that the main villains of Puss in Boots 2011 are Jack and Jill. Come on now, guys. The main villain is Humpty Dumpty. He's the one who hired them and orchestrated this plot against Puss. Yeah, he gets redeemed in the end, but he's still the main villain. And frankly, I don't want to talk about Jack and Jill. I think they're unfunny and lame. To be fair though, Humpty is also kinda lame. It's a little hard to take him seriously as the emotional core of the story when he looks like that. There's kinda something there with his need to get revenge on Puss for ruining his life, even though he entirely did that himself. And the fact that his big brother bonding quest with Puss was all a facade and only served as a means for his betrayal kinda stings on paper. But again, I just feel like there's something missing here. You really need to be invested in Puss and Humpty's friendship in order for Humpty's betrayals to land. And I just don't think I can afford that kind of investment in the wacky Zach Galifianakis Eggman. He's just not a very potent character dramatically. Nor does he have that sort of manic, Rumpelstiltskin-like energy that I would want out of a character like this comedically. Look, I don't know, man. Would you rank Humpty Dumpty very high on your DreamWorks villain list? Why do I need to justify myself here? I mean, just look at this fucking goober. On what planet can I legitimately call him a good villain? Galaxar is pretty whatever. Kinda like the rest of Monsters vs. Aliens. Okay, actually, the president is pretty funny. But like, this dopey-ass Dwight Schrute alien doesn't even appear that much until the last third of the movie. And when he's there, he's just reheating the comedic nachos of other funnier DreamWorks villains. I think I laughed a bit when he was telling that story that kept getting cut off by the cloning machine, but that's about it. I don't take him seriously as a threat to Earth. I think he is ugly as shit. I think the whole movie is really ugly as shit, except for Bob, he's cute. I don't know, man, he's just a really forgettable villain. Not awful, but one of the weaker elements of a movie I already don't care for very much. I've said it before, but I also don't like how visually similar he is to Megamind. It implies that these movies are on similar levels of quality, which could not be further from the truth. Have I mentioned that I do not care for Monsters vs. Aliens?
Yes, Chef.
Thank you.
Oh no, not Chef. The dastardly Bergen from Trolls 2016. I'm pretty sure she doesn't have a name. It's just Chef. Okay. Yeah, I never liked this movie, but I guess she's a fine enough antagonist. Not really all that memorable, but she manages to be a decently intimidating presence who manipulates all Bergenkind into believing that eating a troll is the only way to make them happy. I'm pretty sure she's also the one who ate Branch's grandma in the infamous "because singing killed my grandma" scene. Shit, did I say infamous? I meant extremely emotionally compelling and tragic. Overall, a fine enough villainous presence when you're watching the movie. Just don't ask me to name a single line of hers right now. I could not do it.
As there is one amongst us.
Or is it among us? I always forget which one is grammatically.
Rock and roll's the devil's work.
I'm gonna be honest, I thought I finished the script, but then I realized I forgot about Trolls World Tour and I had to go back. Queen Barb is a evil rock troll and she wants to take over the troll world with rock and roll. Her dad is voiced by Ozzy Osbourne. I guess she's more effective and slightly more charismatic than Chef from Trolls 1. She's definitely one of the less obnoxious things about this movie. It's kind of weird that her main conflict is, man, I wish I had a friend, instead of, the pop trolls tried to steal all the strings way back when and I resent them for that. I guess that would make her look like a hypocrite now that she's trying to steal the strings herself, but wait, why am I talking about this? Who cares?
Look at all those chickens.
It's me, the #1 chicken run hater. Nah, I'm just kidding. I think it's fine, but not one of my favorites. And the same applies to the villain, Mrs. Tweedy. She's effective at tormenting these chickens or whatever, but aside from serviceably performing her antagonistic role, she really doesn't leave much of an impression on me at all. And I don't like how she treats Mr. Tweedy when I'm watching Chicken Run and Mrs. Tweedy is mean to her husband. Pisses me off, dude. The only part where I remotely have fun with her as a villain is the climax where she's completely lost it and hanging onto the plane by a thread. That part's kind of entertaining. For the most part though, yeah, I'm not a Mrs. Tweedy enjoyer. Sorry, Chicken Run Nation.
Betrayal!
Also, not that this is relevant since it's not a DreamWorks movie, but they kind of wasted her in the sequel. Yeah, remember how they made a sequel to Chicken Run? I legit forgot until making this video. And Aardman has been wasting their old villains a lot. I really liked Vengeance Most Foul, but it absolutely did not need Feathers McGraw to return. He never made as big of an impact in that movie as the time he pulled out a gun on Gromit. Oh yeah, if Feathers McGraw counted for this list, he would be #1, obviously.
But what if, I were to purchase fast food and disguise it as my own cooking?
Yeah, why not? I'll put the evil Jeff Goldblum baby from Boss Baby Family Business this high. What are you gonna do about it? No, seriously, you can't stop me. Go ahead and try, idiot. The video is already out. It's too late for me to make any changes to the order now. Yeah, I don't know. This movie was marginally better than the Boss Baby one, but it was also not very good. But the villain was a definite upgrade. He actually shows up for more than 2 scenes. His plan to turn parents into zombies and have babies rule the earth is way better than whatever Steve Buscemi wanted to do in the first movie. And it's just funny hearing normal deadpan Jeff Goldblum not emoting at all, even during the action-packed climax. It was chuckle-worthy. Am I gonna remember anything about this villain by tomorrow? No. But does that mean I shouldn't give him the credit he deserves as a fun and effective antagonist? Actually, yeah, probably. What am I thinking here?
This guy is a sorcerer.
I like the idea behind Zekel Khan as this religious zealot figure who tries to speak for the gods and commit atrocities in their name, even when it seems like they're physically there in person to directly contradict what he says. But the execution is kind of another story. It's not that he's a bad villain, he's just kind of an unremarkable one. Like, for how beloved The Road to El Dorado is and how much people quote it to this day, can you name a single memorable Zekel Khan quote? He's a far more limp addition to the cast than everyone else surrounding him, and he doesn't accomplish a whole lot with the crazy sorcery powers he barely uses. All he really does is summon a big jaguar monster. Like, imagine if that's all Jafar did in Aladdin. Lame. I definitely don't dislike the guy. It's sometimes fun to watch his petty squabbles with the chief, but overall, I wouldn't say he adds a ton to this movie.
I am a space hamster.
Welcome to Schaff Productions! My name is Kevin, and it's time for us to talk about one of the most compelling, cinematic, well-written DreamWorks movies this world has ever seen. Are you ready to give us your in-depth thoughts, James?
This is probably where I'd rank Professor Marmalade from The Bad Guys.
And I am a wild robot.
Oh, that's why they call it that.
Vantra is a decently fun villain. You know, when she actually appears in the last third of Wild Robot. It's fine, the story didn't really call for a villain before this point. But her very limited screen time makes it so it's hard to justify ranking her much higher, in spite of her movie being one of DreamWorks' best. She doesn't have an interesting motivation or anything, she's just doing what she was programmed to do, but she does it with such a delightful demeanor that it's hard not to be entertained by her. It's also easy to root against her when she tries to erase Roz's memories. Stephanie Hsu is giving a fun voice performance. Yeah, I don't really have much else. This character is just kind of lucky I have a huge soft spot for the Wild Robot. But even then, they're still fun when they do finally show up for a bit.
Dude, we're getting the band back together.
Don't tell anybody, you guys, but I kind of liked Trolls Band Together. Well, okay, I didn't like it. I thought it was fine. Definitely had way too much going on plot-wise, and sometimes falls into the same bad habits as the first two movies. But yeah, I'm not gonna lie, it was kind of fun sometimes. I even enjoyed the villains in this one, Spinel and Cuphead character. That's their names. The rubber hose designs are pretty cool, and their movement is really something. They're also a decently funny duo, and I like how the guy has a bit of a crisis of conscience, while his sister convinces him to pursue fame and villainy more and more. Keeps their dynamic interesting when you're not sure how long it'll be before he gets redeemed, if at all. And their action chase scene towards the end when they're performing Sweet Dreams and the other song was pretty cool. Yeah, I don't know. Overall, they were the highlight of a perfectly fine Trolls movie. This one even remembered the Blurgans existed, something World Tour just forgot. There you go, folks. I gave a Trolls movie a nice, solid 6 out of 10. I don't hate this franchise except when it's bad, which is most of the time.
You're a bad kitty.
This is probably where I'd rank Kitty Cat from The Bad Guys too.
Please.
Okay, I'll talk about aspects of the Bad Guys films finally. I mean, what else is $20,000 worth of charitable donations for? I don't really have too much of a problem with Marmalade being a pretty obvious twist villain, mainly because they reveal his true nature halfway through and give him plenty of time to be evil. I think Richard Ayoade's understated delivery suits this character very well, and makes his otherwise insane demeanor a lot funnier. He goes to some pretty solid lengths to use and ultimately toss the bad guys aside. Ultimately, he's not the most memorable or menacing character, but he's not a bad guy, and he has his moments. And Kitty Cat from The Bad Guys 2 is even better. I like how smart and manipulative she is. It's pretty novel seeing her outplay the bad guys at every turn, despite their attempts to outplay her. Her lollipop story is pretty good, and especially the magnet trap she lays that'll expose Diane's identity if the bad guys don't stay put is pretty diabolical. Especially because it actually works. I like how there's some actual consequence in this story. It's nice how her two henchwomen, Birdo and Pumbaa, get a redemption arc, but she stays sinister and resentful right to the end. Yeah, I just think she's a pretty good villain in a movie that is better than the first one. There you go, guys. There's a concrete opinion I have on The Bad Guys 2. You did it. I really have nothing against these movies. I just think it's funny to keep up the bit of not talking about them too much.
And while we're on this topic, let me just say that
If you finish that sentence, you're fired.
Fine.
Also, Marmalade was even better in this second movie. What do you mean he's an alien? What the fuck? The Colonel from the Real Spirit movie is a good example of less is more. This movie is by far at its best when it's letting the visuals tell the story and not get bogged down by unnecessary dialogue. Good thing there's not too much of that. Like, oh, I don't know, completely unnecessary narration from Matt Damon giving us the thoughts of the horse, which are just the things that we're already seeing on screen. That would really suck and drag this movie down from an absolute masterpiece to just pretty good. But you know, I'm glad that's not in the movie. Anyway, the Colonel. He doesn't have a lot of characterization or dialogue, but they give you everything you need to know about him. He's ruthless, he's sinister, he equates breaking the spirit of the Native Americans and stealing their lands to breaking the spirit of a horse named Spirit. He's a twisted manifestation of Manifest Destiny, brought to life very effectively despite his limited screen time. The one scene that always really stuck with me with this guy was when Spirit leaps over the gap and he stops one of his men from firing at Spirit, only to give him and Little Creek a nod of respect. It's a really interesting way to close the book on your antagonist, by having him find the tiniest shred of honor and letting the objects of his subjugation go. Fascinating stuff. Overall, he really worked for what this movie was. Just a pretty solid and stoic villain for Spirit to constantly come up against. Fuck! So, B-movie. For the life of me, I couldn't choose between the glorious Ken and the sultry lawyer Leighton T. Montgomery. They both occupy such a tremendous comedic space in this already dangerously funny film. It may not be good, but it is so funny. And a huge part of its comedic appeal comes from two of the finest Academy Award-worthy performances in the business, given in this film by Patrick Warburton and John Goodman. Everybody talks about the deliriously unhinged lines Ken screams at the top of his lungs, but somehow his quieter lines crack me up even more.
That's where I usually sit. Right.
He serves as a potent foil to Barry and the manifestation of the cold indifference humans have to the plight of bee kind. But he pales in comparison to the active antagonism and evil of Montgomery, who's brought to life with a scintillating southern drawl from John Goodman and some truly outstanding animation. I mean, look at him flop around like that. That's just funny, dude. I also want to give special mention to the third best antagonist in this movie, Ray Liotta. Simply terrifying stuff. This rivals his performances in Goodfellas and Hubie Halloween. But yeah, legit, as a kid, I was always kind of terrified of Montgomery's threat to Barry that he's upset the natural order. And it's frightening to see that this threat somewhat comes to pass. Not that I'm really intimidated by this guy nowadays, I just think he's a funny dude whose funniness allows him to jointly, alongside Ken and Ray Liotta, outrank a lot of the studio's more serious attempts at villains. Plus he's dummy thick, oh lordy.
I had to beat an old lady with a stick.
That's right, baby. Madagascar Escape to Africa gets 2 villains on this list. And there's such a gigantic gap in quality between them that I couldn't rank them together. Nana is just fucking awesome. You know that meme where it's sorting villains into different tiers based on their motivations? Well, Nana is an Elder God tier villain. This remarkable old woman manages to survive in a hostile environment with a ton of wild animals running around and carjacking people. In fact, she doesn't just survive, she thrives and rallies her fellow New Yorkers to become the best versions of themselves they can be. Okay, that's probably not true, but they're all certainly doing their best under these insane circumstances. I just found her to be a really inspiring leader of the human resistance in this movie, but she still manages to be plenty nefarious, like when she's the only human unmoved by the beautiful father-son lion dance-off. How can you see this tender moment and still want to shoot these lions with a gun and kill them? Insane. Nana is so effective as an antagonist because her charisma and leadership abilities cannot be denied. In a way, she serves as a dark antithesis to Alex, someone who was unable to rally his fellow lions and become a leader up to this point. But by uprooting Nana and her nefarious dam, thereby restoring water to all the animals, Alex overcomes his shortcomings and emerges a true leader, while Nana falls. There's something truly poetic and beautiful about that. It's also really funny when she says, "Bad kitty," and then she kicks Alex in the nuts. A really great character. I'm so glad they expanded her role tenfold in Madagascar 2. But I'm equally glad they knew to quit while they were ahead and not bring her back for the 3rd installment. It all worked out since that movie has the best Madagascar villain. But we haven't gotten to her yet. Oh yeah, spoilers, she's better than Dave, sorry.
Darkness
What?
Despite quite enjoying the Jack Frost x Elsa movie, I wasn't huge on its villain, Pitch Black, the first time I saw it. I think that mainly comes down to the design. Like, this guy looks so dumb, I'm sorry. Rise of the Guardians always had a much more unconventional art style than most other DreamWorks movies, which paid off in some instances, but kinda backfired in others. Here, I mean, come on, he's so dopey looking, which doesn't bode well since he's played much more seriously than a lot of other DreamWorks villains. Not a ton of humor to be found here, aside from the odd moment here and there. But on the upside, in spite of his odd look, he actually manages to be quite cunning and threatening, slowly breaking the will of children all over the globe and getting them to stop believing in the Guardians. He even nearly kills Jack and temporarily does kill the Sandman. I mean, he got better, but still. And I think there's something there with him relating to Jack's sense of loneliness. It's not fleshed out all that well, but there was certainly a solid idea there tying the hero and villain together thematically. Ultimately, he's one of the more effective villains on this list in terms of his evil accomplishments. I just wish his personality was a bit stronger, and especially his design was a bit less extremely stupid. I thought after all this time, I might like dragging Nuts Fist a little bit better than I did before. And to his credit, he is an absolutely monstrous threat that definitely at least belongs in the top 20. His ability to control dragons and amass a huge army by way of the Alpha makes him a really formidable villain. I think the way he gets dragons to yield by screaming them into submission is pretty neat, and his design and voice are pretty cool. It's nice to have an antagonist who Hiccup is completely insistent that he can reason with until he actually tries and realizes this guy is absolutely irredeemable. And getting Toothless to attempt to murder Hiccup and successfully murder Stoic is insane. I'm still kind of amazed they had the balls to let that happen. He certainly works, but I still can't help but find him a bit too flat as a character. His motivation for doing what he does is so flimsy that Hiccup immediately pokes holes in it, to which Drago basically admits that, yeah, he just wants power. I just don't think there's a lot of meat on the bone there in terms of his character. He's also pretty stiff and humorless, which, you know, not every villain needs to be a jokester. But in the absence of humor, I would have liked a lot more complexity. There just isn't a whole lot to this guy deep down. But I can't lie and say that he wasn't an incredibly effective antagonist. Not my favorite in this saga, but yeah, pretty solid. Holy shit, step on me. I mean, Eris is a really cool villain. I'm not even the biggest Sinbad fan, but she definitely sticks out as its best element. She's not really in it as much as I'd like, but her more passive role in the story, watching from afar and sending f***ass monsters to kill Sinbad, does make sense and tie into her status as the manipulative goddess of discord. Man, it was so evil when she pinged everyone in the server. I just love how she does things for no other reason but to cause chaos. It's such a classic, callous, godlike way to behave. She's just a little prankster who would unironically post, "Me when I have to topple an entire kingdom because I'm bored." It's also so classic how when Sinbad shows up at her doorstep looking for the mysterious book, she serves a game with him, and only if he wins, he will get what he's yearning. And I like how she's defeated in this game by her overconfidence that Sinbad is a selfish prick who won't go back to save his best friend. It's nice to tie the main character's arc directly into the villain's defeat like this. Mainly though, her appeal comes from what a tremendous feat of 2D animation it was to bring her to life. Her character makes for a great swan song for 2D animation at DreamWorks because, by God, her movement is incredible. Michelle Pfeiffer is also deliciously hammy in the vocal performance, which is a nice way of offsetting how lame Brad Pitt and Sinbad's entire character are in this movie. Sorry, I don't really like it, but damn, Eris is cool. This movie is kind of the opposite of The Road to El Dorado, where everything in that movie was a ton of fun, except for the villain. Here, I don't know, the whole movie should have just been about Eris. Sue me.
What is the joke name, sir?
Now it is finally time to talk about the great Professor Poopy Pants. I don't know if anyone else has noticed this before, but that's a pretty funny name. I grew up reading the Captain Underpants books, so let me tell ya, it was a real treat seeing such an iconic villain brought to life on the big screen like this. He's got so many banger lines, from "Go away, Scram, we're closed for Ebola," to his comment on the tiny salaries of the teachers, which reflects the state of the American education system. He's just a funny guy whose motivation for evil doing is entirely understandable. I mean, God, chill out, people, it's not that funny. Okay, it kinda is. But seeing his achievements constantly get dismissed and downplayed because of his name is deeply tragic and upsetting. It almost makes me want to root for him. But unfortunately, removing the laughter glands of children everywhere is a bit of a deal breaker. This guy makes for a more than worthy nemesis to Captain Underpants, and more so George and Harold. I even like how they essentially invent his supervillain persona by him getting inspired by their comic to recruit Melvin and wear the outfit they drew him wearing. It's a fun parallel to how they obviously invented Captain Underpants. Yeah, I mean, not too much to complain about with Professor Poopy Pants. He's a fun guy. I mean, I wasn't about to rank him low. Are you insane?
You've just been verminated.
Oh me, oh my. What an embarrassment of riches to pick from with Over the Hedge's villainous catalog. Who's even the main villain here? Vincent? The Verminator? Or Gladys Sharp? The president of the Homeowners Association? I can't decide. F it, the spot goes to all three of them together combined. You might be shocked that the Verminator is so much lower than he was on my top 10 DreamWorks villain video. And it's not because Vincent or Gladys are dragging him down in this one. It's honestly because I said he was the 10th best villain as a joke. I wasn't serious. I've kind of been memeing about how much I like the Verminator for the past half a decade. He's funny, largely because of the Thomas Hayden Church performance giving him a ton of life. I also like some of his lines, like, I will personally guarantee there will not be a living thing at this party. But yeah, I don't know. He's no Tamatoa. Gladys is also really funny. Like, I like when she says, I hope it's not in pain, followed by, kill it! Quite a humorous, whack-ass Karen. And Vincent doesn't appear much, but his voice is really menacing, and I like how he serves as a foil for RJ, who starts to see the value in family and community. It's also really funny when he screams, RJ! The van scene with him is pretty humorous as well. I feel like that scene walked so all the insane shit in Hoppers could run. Yeah, I don't know. 3 really funny villains who aren't deep, but all serve as good threats for the heroes to avoid. I like the way the Verminator says, get her! Oh, and while we're on the subject, I'm still working on that poorly translated Over the Hedge fan dub. Most of it is recorded and we just gotta edit it all into the movie. I just haven't had much of a chance to with all the Ace Attorney and Star Wars poll, and now this and Jim Carrey chicanery afoot. Maybe it'll be out by the end of the summer. Maybe. No promises. Okay, before the end of 2026, final answer.
Well. A royal flush.
The Toad from Flushed Away is a delightfully goofy villain, brought to life with a spirited Ian McKellen performance and some delightful expressive animation. You just never know what's gonna set this lunatic off. And his dynamic with his silly little rat henchmen and inexplicably French frog cousin is an absolute treat. The main thing that's always stuck out for me with this guy is just how inventive his plan is. He wants to flood this entire rat civilization by opening the pipes, specifically when it's halftime at the World Cup, since everyone will be using the bathroom then. How do you come up with this stuff? He's an incredibly clever mad genius who's generally delightful to watch throughout the whole film. Maybe not quite as funny as some of the upcoming villains on this list, but the sheer imagination they had when dreaming up some of his attributes have to count for something.
Some of you may die.
Good.
On paper, there really isn't much special about Lord Farquaad. He's just a plot device villain who initiates Shrek's quest and serves as a false love for Fiona. He's barely in the movie, and he doesn't do as much as future Shrek villains. So why is he just so peak? I think growing up and learning what the whole behind-the-scenes deal is with him, how he's meant to be a caricature of Michael Eisner brought about from Jeffrey Katzenberg's seething resentment at not getting a promotion at Disney. There are so few villains out there who were born out of venomous contempt and hatred like this one was. And he's just really damn funny. Like, John Lithgow is having the time of his life delivering these lines. I love the way he says, go on, or, now kiss me! These aren't even funny lines necessarily, but he makes them funny. It rules. I think there's a reason Farquaad remains such an iconic face in the series, despite him never coming back after the first movie. He's just this deliciously small and petty diva, who makes such an impression in the limited screen time he receives. A little outshone by the Shrek villains who followed him, but still a great villain in his own right. It was funny when he got a boner. I'm not huge on the Penguins of Madagascar solo movie. Like, it's fine and has some fun moments, but I don't really think about it that much. But when I was tallying up my thoughts on all the villains DreamWorks has put out, I realized, damn, there's not much wrong with Daryl the Octopus. He's kinda great, actually. He's incredibly funny, from the writing to the excellent John Malkovich performance. Seriously, that gag where he makes name puns out of random actors when he's giving his henchmen orders kills me every time. He's got an actual pretty good and logical motivation to be evil and to resent Penguin kind for constantly stealing attention away from him. His plan is incredibly dastardly and effective. The way he moves is so unsettling and creepy. You can tell the animators had a ton of fun with that. And the whole time, he just remains this deliciously petty asshole. Thanks in no small part to his personal vendetta against the titular Penguins of Madagascar. But also because he's just a deliciously evil and spiteful guy, despite his somewhat sympathetic motivation. You gotta give Dennis credit. He's kind of a sleeper hit among the DreamWorks villains. Even when they do a kinda cliche gag, like the goofy villain being muted on a video call and not realizing it, the execution of said gag is just so funny that it doesn't matter. Yeah, he kinda rules. He only isn't higher because there are villains who are either more interesting, more menacing, or more funny. But like I said, there isn't really a lot to complain about with Daniel.
That's a little version of me, Alan.
Even though I was a Captain Underpants kid growing up, I think Dogman was a little after my time. So my first exposure to this series was the movie. So I say this as someone who has not a hint of nostalgia for these characters. Damn, Petey was a really good villain. He's just funny as hell in the first half with his manic plans he rapidly cycles through in order to defeat Dogman. Hell, in the beginning of the movie, he literally succeeded at blowing Greg and Dog the hell up. Ordinarily, this is where the villain would have won. It's just too bad he didn't count on surgery that stitches the dog head and man body together. I feel like that's the Achilles heel of most villains. But yeah, he's fun for the first half, like I said. I love the back and forth he has with his fired assistant, who probably could have been in the movie even more. It isn't until he clones himself and creates Little Petey where this character actually starts to get a lot of shocking depth and nuance. Yeah, in Dogman. I know, right? Watching him abandon his boy actually made me really upset. But it's really nice seeing him slowly come to realize he does care for his little clone dude. And when Petey finally starts to open up about his abandonment issues and Little Petey brings the asshole dad back into the picture, I gotta be honest, I wasn't expecting this subplot to end with the dad just up and leaving again. Like, no, we're not gonna have this clean resolution for Petey where the man who made him this way is suddenly gonna be all apologetic. Petey still doesn't have a good dad in his life. And yet, he needs to make the right choice to be a good dad for Little Petey anyway. I thought that was strangely emotionally compelling and well done. I thought his redemption arc was appropriate and well executed. I guess you could argue Petey isn't the villain in the third act, but like, the fish they have to fight was created by Petey, so close enough. Yeah, despite this movie not being perfect and having way too much going on at once, I thought Petey was really well executed. At times, he feels way more like the main character than Dogman does. What can I say? Really great villain, honestly.
No one remembers Kai.
I was ready to rank Kai a little bit lower, like hovering around spot number 20 or so, because it's hard to argue that he isn't a bit of a disappointment compared to Tai Lung and Shen. Mainly, this is because of the lack of a compelling backstory and motivation, which is unfortunate because the pieces are there. He used to be friends with Oogway and felt betrayed after Oogway essentially erased him from history to the point where no one remembers him. See, me describing it like that is more compelling than how it's actually portrayed in the movie, where it's pretty much just played for comedy. On top of that, he just turned evil because he realized he could use chi for evil. Okay, care to elaborate on that? No? Again, the bones of the backstory are there and potentially interesting, but they weren't nearly fleshed out to the same extent as the previous Kung Fu Panda villains. So yes, by this franchise's standards, he's a little disappointing. Not the worst anymore, but definitely disappointing coming off of Shen. But the good news is, when you see him in action, his lack of interesting characterization doesn't matter too much. Holy shit, this guy is a monster. Managing to take the chi of every kung fu master in the land and turn them into his personal Jade Zombie army. His fighting skills with those two blades are really something to behold, and oh my god, his theme music rules so hard. Instantly iconic and tremendously enhancing his intimidation factor. Plus, in the grand tradition of Kung Fu Panda villains, he manages to be both frightening and funny. I love his immense frustration at nobody knowing who he is, and that scene where he pretends the Wuxi fingerhold worked on him is pretty great too. Great J.K. Simmons performance as well, on top of everything else. It's honestly crazy I have to categorize him as a relative disappointment within this franchise. Because most animated franchises would count themselves lucky to have a villain this cool and intimidating. Isn't it great how he exploded in the spirit realm and then Kung Fu Panda 4 said, yeah, no, he's fine. And he even bowed to Po because he respects him now. What a great movie.
You're bald?
Lord Victor Quatermain is such a funny guy, dude. Bumbling and goofy while also serving as a solid threat. It's kind of incredible how his entire evil plan is to shoot Wallace with a gun out of jealousy that Wallace is encroaching on the lady whose fortune he's after. It's honestly really convenient that Wallace turned into a giant were-rabbit, so shooting him with a gun is socially acceptable. Seriously, he may be a big goofball who gets constantly humiliated, but that evil look he gives Gromit when he finds out Wallace is the were-rabbit has always stuck with me. It's such a gleeful depiction of a deeply sinister plan coming together. It also rules that this guy has his own evil Gromit. Just another intelligent dog with a coin purse and everything, who assists his master with various evil machinations. Ralph Fiennes gives a really delightful performance that thankfully fits the world of Wallace and Gromit really well, even if he is celebrity. I wonder if this is the last time we'll be talking about a Ralph Fiennes villain on this list.
I can still bag your bag.
Anyway, he's a delight. I love when he does something stupid like accidentally waste one of his golden bullets to get everyone's attention, or when he gets his head stuck in the cotton candy machine. He's so silly! Haha! He's so silly! But the fact that he remains a looming threat throughout the entire film in spite of his goofy moments is what really makes him stand out as one of the greatest villains in the DreamWorks catalog. Even though I still don't really know if this should count as DreamWorks. I feel like this might have been all Aardman creatively, while DreamWorks just distributed it. Oh well, thank you for throwing your money at this, DreamWorks. It was worth it to bring Victor Quatermain to life.
It reminds me of the hunt.
I saw a tweet about Captain Dubois from Madagascar 3 that said, this woman would be moving through Zootopia like Omni-Man did in the Flaxen homeworld. And yeah, I can't think of a better way to summarize Captain Dubois. Hey wait, this person follows me. Thank you for the funny tweet, gummy boobies. Dubois is an absolute f***ing lunatic who perfectly captures the manic energy of Madagascar as a franchise. I mean, she has absolutely zero chill in her pursuit of Alex's head. Smashing through buildings, sliding on fish, singing a rousing operatic ballad to inspire her comrades to follow her. It's hard to think of another DreamWorks villain this dedicated. She wants to chop off Alex's head, and she just goes for it. Like, yeah, you go, girl. They clearly had so much fun animating the random shenanigans she does, like ducking under a train and rolling through the wheels as it's moving. Come on, bro. Speaking of fun, clearly that's what 3-time Academy Award winner Frances McDormand had voicing her. You know, you could argue that this is her finest role to date. I wouldn't, but you could. I mean, she just loses herself in the insanity of this manic French lunatic, with so many hilarious and legitimately kind of menacing line deliveries to boot. I'm not even the biggest fan of Madagascar 3, but she lights up the screen every time the focus shifts to her. Easily the best villain in the Madagascar trilogy. She may not be complex in the slightest, but she is damn funny and damn effective.
I will have killed the last
Night Fury.
So wait, if there are baby Night Furies in the ending scene, then Toothless, my man. Dude, this movie is awesome, and Grimwell outmogs Drago in basically every way. It's riveting watching this master tactician at work, seeing him foil every trap Hiccup lays for him, and slowly and methodically reveling in the thrill of this final Night Fury hunt. Yeah, he probably should have killed Toothless when he had a chance, but otherwise, he's an incredibly smart and ruthless monster, who's believably threatening enough to the point where he actually wins. He may have died, but he's one of the final pushes Hiccup needs to realize the dragons will be safe in their ancestral home. He's also a great foil to Hiccup, as someone who did kill that first Night Fury, and then went on to destroy nearly all the others. And that scene where he infiltrates and destroys Hiccup's house, easily bypassing the trap Hiccup lays for him, while also mocking Stoic's death as a direct consequence of him learning to accept dragons. Ooh, this guy is nasty. Cunning and deceitful, someone who lives up to the buildup he receives, and leaves a striking impression as the trilogy's best antagonist. This rewatch almost made me want to actually talk about why this movie is so excellent, but then again, now I can talk about Pikmin on this channel, so I still don't feel like it.
Say my name.
Alright, look, I know we went over all of this 6 years ago, but damn, Shrek Forever After is a good movie. And it's pissing me off all over again that it took so long for this underrated gem to start getting appreciation. And it's insane that audiences at the time this movie came out didn't grasp the sheer, delightful, villainous energy of Rumpelstiltskin, this little freak. This absolute untamable gremlin. He steals just about every scene he's thrust into, thanks in no small part to the impeccable performance of head of story Walt Dorn. He did the temporary scratch track voiceover for Rumple that they were gonna replace with insert celebrity here. But they realized, hey, wait a minute, this performance is fire. Let's just use it. I think Dorn's performance here is one of the single best cases against celebrity voice acting I've ever seen. Because, yeah, there are plenty of celebrities who could have voiced Rumple just fine. But you see what happens when we bring in a dedicated voice actor? He is off the charts in this movie. He makes otherwise mundane lines into hilarious standouts with his snivelly, wheezly little voice. Not to mention, he does have a lot of lines that are funny as written. Nobody's smart but me! This is all without even mentioning what a little creep he is. I think a good litmus test for whether you'll like this character is when he clenches his toes so hard they pop out of his boots. It's grotesque, but it's got so much personality to it. And that's how I describe Rumple. He's always doing enough to potentially be completely off-putting, but it all pretty much lands and just makes him that much more fun to watch. Not to mention, he's honestly the most threatening villain in the mainline Shrek saga. He perfectly orchestrated a scheme to take over Far, Far Away and ruin Shrek's life as revenge for accidentally ruining his. He did what Fairy Godmother and Charming couldn't. He actually won. What a guy. I honestly can't give him enough props as a villain. He's one of the most effective in DreamWorks' entire catalog, both comedically and as a threat to the heroes. I could watch this little goober all day. They didn't have to kill his goose though, that was kind of fucked up. One movie I've never really gotten a chance to talk about on this channel is Megamind. Yeah, not much has changed in the past few years. Titan is still one of the most interesting, menacing, and funny DreamWorks villains to date. Way ahead of the curve in terms of depicting the modern day incel who thinks they're entitled to women, and how frightening this sort of character would be if they were given godlike powers. Just having these abilities doesn't inherently make you a hero, and having this sort of character assume the role of supervillain is a lot more interesting than it would have been if someone who was already pure evil got a chance to obtain Metro Man's abilities. Because we get to see Hal's perception of the hero life he expects to have break down in real time. The scene where Roxanne rejects him and he fully commits to the Titan persona and leaves the old Hal behind is actually pretty chilling. As chilling as you can get with a character this goofy anyway. But the fact that he remains a complete loser throughout in terms of his personality actually enhances the character. The powers are all you need to make him threatening, and it's a lot more entertaining and realistic that he doesn't go through a complete personality shift. I mean, if he was pure evil and darkness in the second half, we wouldn't get, "There is no Queen of England." How is he this funny? It's criminal. I also like at the end when he does the penis music dance. Overall, one of the most inspired additions to DreamWorks' villainous catalog. You know exactly why he works so well. Probably because I told you like 7 years ago.
Hi, I'm Harvey Epstein and I'm running for City Council of New York City.
God, Jack Horner is funny, man. I think he might be the funniest DreamWorks villain. I think his voice actor should do stand-up. Is there anything better than taking Mulaney and letting him go hog wild in a vocal booth? Like, you see this design and you assume your average animated movie would just be lazy and get James Corden to voice him. But Puss in Boots: The Last Wish is a good movie. So instead, Jack Horner has an actual funny voice. There are seriously too many great lines with this guy to count. And on top of being funny, he serves as a legitimate threat. Arguably the biggest the wider Shrek series has ever seen, since he'll have control of all magic if he succeeds. And considering how Puss is trying to avoid dying the whole movie, it significantly raises the stakes to have Jack be a walking death magnet, whose bakers largely perish because of his actions. He accidentally shoots 3 of them with unicorn horns and explodes them into confetti. 1 would have been ridiculous. 2 would have been insane. But 3? To quote the worst movie in history to feature Puss in Boots, you need to work on your aim. but it's the fact that Jack remains so callous and unfazed by his loyal bakers dying around him that makes him all the more deliciously despicable. And don't even get me started on the ethical bug. Their back and forth is one of the most inspired elements of the film comedically. And it's cool to have a villain in the Shrek universe who pilfers magical artifacts from other fairy tales and constantly misuses them. I've said it before, but it's like a metaphor for Disney in a franchise that was literally built on giving Disney the finger. Honestly, I don't have any problems with Jack Horner as a villain. I couldn't really justify putting him in the top 5 since he's not an interesting character by design, but damn is he one of the most entertaining DreamWorks villains to watch. And yet, it's crazy how he's not even the best villain in the Shrek series. Fairy Godmother is. Oops, I gave that away too soon. I shouldn't have telegraphed it. Ahem. C minor, put it in C minor. Holy shit, the fairy godmother, dude. On my original list, I put her at first place. But like, even at the time, that felt a little overboard. She's not really complex in the same way the villains I ultimately decided to rank above her are. But what she is the baddest bitch in all the land. She's cunning, she's manipulative, she will stop at nothing to make sure her stupid chud son gets everything he ever wanted. I love how even when she gets blindsided by Shrek stealing a potion right from under her nose, she concocts this master plan just right off the dome to get Charming and Fiona together for good. All while getting rid of Shrek by directly feeding his insecurity that he isn't good enough to be with Fiona. And she frames it as good godmotherly advice, telling Shrek it's what's best for Fiona, and that if he really loves her, he'll let her go. Damn, she's evil. And she's so funny on top of that. My diet is ruined. I hope you're happy. There's also a lingering implication that she was the one who cursed Fiona, and this was all her master gambit. It's never outright stated in the films, but it just makes too much sense. Oh yeah, and then she does the I need a hero scene or whatever. Do I even need to talk about that? I mean, obviously it's one of the raddest covers to ever grace the silver screen. In one of the most exciting climaxes any kids movie has ever seen, and probably will ever see. They just struck gold with this character in every respect. From her witty, biting dialogue, to her out-of-pocket jokes, to Jennifer Saunders' outstanding vocal performance. It's really hard to fault Fairy Godmother for anything, other than her just not being as complex and emotionally compelling as some of the villains we'll get to. But make no mistake, she's the baddest in the land. It's really hard to top her in terms of sheer, delicious evil. I like how shocked everyone is that she's Prince Charming's mother, because, yeah, how did she, you know... I mean, if we're judging these villains solely by their evil accomplishments, it's kind of difficult to top wiping out nearly the entire panda species. Shen is an absolute lunatic. Someone who manages to be terrifying and cunning, yet also enticingly pathetic, with an ever-present chip on his shoulder. The way the soothsayer always gets his goat no matter what he does to try and defy her prophecies is so interesting. I love the dynamic between them. His interactions with Poe and consistent shock at the panda's emotional intelligence and ability to cope with the trauma he inflicted on him is also so enticing. Poe's ability to grow past everything that happened to him is such a sharp contrast to Shen, who remains firmly rooted in the past and his constant desire for revenge on top of conquest. And boy is he a petty little bitch, constantly reveling in the emotional damage he temporarily afflicts on Poe. One of the major reasons he's a fan favorite villain in this series is because he gets the best dynamic with Poe. He's the only one who meets Poe earlier than the third act, which is kind of crazy now that I'm saying it out loud. As a result, their verbal confrontations are both dramatically potent and often hilarious. He's a pretty funny guy, on top of being sinister and demonic. Mainly though, it's his sheer callousness and disregard for the thousands of panda lives he destroyed that makes him absolutely unforgettable. It's incredible they managed to add in such a dark and monstrous backstory for him, while also making him complex in terms of his feelings towards his parents and family legacy. He's incredibly well-rounded despite not being sympathetic or redeemable in any way. At the very least, it was striking how he accepted his fate in his last moments instead of trying to run away. Maybe those 2 seconds of accepting that a pillar was gonna fall and kill him explains why he went to the spirit world after he died and bowed to Poe when he returns to the mortal world. You don't hate Kung Fu Panda 4 enough.
I skadoosed your uncle!
I know many of you swear by Shen as the best villain in Kung Fu Panda history. But for me, even he can't top the sheer excellence of Tai Lung. This is a character who truly has it all for me. His backstory is immensely tragic, as Shifu entirely deluded him into believing he was destined to be something he wasn't. The resentment he feels towards Shifu is palpable, and their confrontation towards the end is truly phenomenal. Especially that moment where Shifu finally apologizes, and we see how moved Tai Lung is deep down. There's a lot more dimension to him than you need from the villain of a movie entitled Kung Fu Panda. More than almost anything else, he's the aspect of this movie that indicates just how seriously the filmmakers are taking this premise. The prison escape scene alone is enough to cement what an all-time badass he is. It's easily one of the coolest sequences DreamWorks has ever done, from the slick fight choreography to the sheer ingenuity of how Tai Lung uses his environment to his advantage. He's built up a lot before this point, but this is the moment where he finally proves that he deserves all the hype he's been receiving. And as if that wasn't cool enough, he then comes out on top in a furious 5-on-1 kung fu duel. It further cements him as a perfect, menacing legend. And to top all that off, he's also a funny guy. He makes me giggle and chortle and guffaw with some of his hammier moments and lines. It never goes too far though. He always remains a potent threat who the entire narrative revolves around. He pulls off some of the most phenomenal physical feats ever seen in a DreamWorks movie, which serve to strengthen his absolutely terrifying, ferocious nature. But what really gets me the most at the end of the day is just how potent the tragedy of his story is. How he gave everything to Kung Fu and his master, only to have the rug entirely pulled out from under him. His dynamic and history with Shifu is precisely why he's an all-timer villain for me. It's such a phenomenal and well-realized aspect to his character that allows him to stand head and shoulders above nearly every other DreamWorks villain there's ever been. Nearly. I was actually really close to giving him the number 2 spot, but I couldn't deny this other guy though, come on.
You were my brother! I loved you!
Well, Ramesses came up just short of the fairy godmother in my original list. And now that I've reevaluated my priorities, he's still just short of a new villain. But don't get me wrong, he might just be the most complex villain DreamWorks has ever put out. The sheer tragedy of a man groomed from birth to follow in his father's sinister footsteps, lest he eternally be viewed as the weak link that brought down an entire dynasty. There are so many subtle ways they show that he's far more human than his father ever was. When Seti said, "Be still, Pharaoh speaks," he was commanding. When Ramesses says the same thing, he chuckles as if he takes the weight of his position far less seriously. It makes you wonder if he could have walked the same path as Moses and seen the heinous error in his family's ways. But the fact of the matter is, he made his choice. Another detail I find so fascinating is how in the Plague song, he sings, "Then let my heart be hardened." A bit of an adaptational change from the Bible expressing that God hardened Pharaoh's heart. Here, the agency in the situation seems to all be on Ramesses, and he couldn't stop himself from maintaining the horrible, slave-driven empire that his father passed on to him. He has so many opportunities to free the Hebrews, and he continues to refuse out of pride and selfishness. The single best scene in the movie, and arguably among the best in DreamWorks' entire catalog, is when he and Moses have their last brief moment of camaraderie in the temple, reminiscing on the good times they had together and indicating that the brother Moses loved may not truly be dead. But ultimately, it isn't enough. And Ramesses expresses his bone-chilling intent to finish what his father started. It's a truly stunning vocal performance from Ray Fiennes in his second appearance on this list. Really remarkable considering Victor Quartermain could not be more different than Ramesses. Yeah, he's definitely too white to be voicing this guy, but it was a different time when this movie came out. And for what we got, it's one of the best voice performances in DreamWorks' entire catalog. Ramesses is an outstanding, fascinating villain who perfectly suits the best DreamWorks movie to date. His hubris, his humanity, his callousness, his concern for his brother. He's a magnificent maelstrom of conflicting emotions, detestable and devastating in equal measure. He brought it all on himself, and yet you can't help but feel a sense of pity for him when he washes up after the flood with absolutely nothing left. A villain for the ages. But in terms of the best DreamWorks villain of all time, there's a new morning and evening star in town. 7 minutes. That's all it took for the single most terrifying villain in DreamWorks history to establish himself as such. On some level, you had to have known this was coming. It's death. Okay, I guess I need to get this one out of the way. For the final time, before you come at me and say, Death isn't a villain, he's just doing his job. Motherfucker, his job is not to ruthlessly stalk and torment a cat on his last life. His job is to take that life when Puss dies from some other cause. One of the pussies from the mirror dimension complains that Death is cheating, and Death basically agrees with him. He is a villain. I do not want to hear any more arguments that he isn't in big 2026. Anyway, with that said, yeah, he's the best villain. Pretty much everything about him as a character is flawless. His design, his intense, well-realized fight scenes, the phenomenal vocal performance from Wagner Moura. Much like Ramesses and Shen, so much of Death's appeal as a villain comes from his incredible dynamic with the protagonist. He represents the consequences of Puss's hubris and refusal to value his own life. It's compelling to watch Puss believe he can truly defy death with the power of the last wish. And it's intense watching the stranglehold Death has on Puss's psyche throughout the film. He even gives him a realistic depiction of a panic attack. When does that happen in animated movies? For a character so calm and collected in every other appearance we've seen from him, to be driven to his knees out of fear like this, I mean, that sells the potency of Death as a villain almost as well as everything else about him. But how about that everything else, though? The iconic whistle that signifies his impending arrival, the intimidating way he uses his sickles, and the fact that despite being so dark, he still gets a ton of funny moments here and there. I'm Death. Straight up. And I honestly think his extremely limited amount of screen time is perfect. Less is more, and he looms over the entire narrative, despite really only being prominent in 3 scenes throughout the film. It allows each one of his pitch-perfect appearances to shine as some of the film's best moments. And I don't think he would have been nearly as effective if he kept showing up all the time. His appearances conclude not only with the sickest fight scene in Western animation this decade, but also a tremendously mature conclusion to Puss and Death's journeys together. Death isn't defeated physically, he just loses interest after Puss finally decides he isn't afraid anymore. Their mature, final confrontation together perfectly closes the book on both of their arcs, and the understanding they have that they'll meet again one day is beautiful. Death isn't just a sick-as-hell, terrifying wolf, he's also a great representation of the Grim Reaper and the very concept of death. It's cruel, it's unfeeling, it can come for us at any time, but that's no reason to live in fear. It's on us to live our lives to the fullest while we can, so that we'll be content greeting him when he inevitably comes for us. So for being a pitch-perfect, cruel, and murderous antagonist, while also serving as a perfect representation of his namesake, Death is easily, in my opinion, the greatest DreamWorks villain of all time. Whew, okay, that wasn't so bad, except when I had to rewatch all the bad movies again. I actually had a lot of fun revisiting DreamWorks' best of the best antagonists, and also kicking Turbo in the nuts for the first time in a while. You guys want to see this sort of video with other studios, like Sony or Illumination? I can always throw that on next year's charity reward list. We can finally determine if El Macho is better than Bowser Jr., or if Guima is a greater villain than Gargamel. The possibilities are endless. Let me know. Good night, far, far away, or Valley of Peace, or Burke, or wherever the Boss Baby takes place. Bye!